Welcome to another edition of Asian Founders and Funders. I'm Marc Kramer, Senior Lecturer of Entrepreneurship at VinUniversity and serial entrepreneur. Today, our guest is Naman Shah, founder CEO of NowPurchase. Naman was one of my students, I hate to say this, a very long time ago when I worked for the National University of Singapore. Naman, welcome.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure.
It's I can't begin to tell you how thrilled I am to be interviewing you. So, Nama, let's start with telling the audience what degree you got and what did you do when you first got out of college? What kind of work were you doing?
Sure. So I went to National University of Singapore for my undergrad. After my schooling in India, I pursued economics as my first major. And later on, I decided to do a second major in business management as well as a minor in technopreneurship. And right out of college, I think, a lot of my experience at NUS as well as what I decided to do after college was actually, impacted and influenced by a program called NUS Overseas College, which was a 1 year scholarship program where I got to spend time in Philadelphia, take classes at the beautiful campus of UPenn, as well as work with an early stage startup. Uh, and this was, I would say, my first direct hands-on experience at a startup. And I ended up working for a startup, which was just four folks working closely with the founder and CEO of that company. And then, actually, post my studies, I decided to continue working for them for the next 2.5, 3 years and help them set up a small shop in Singapore and expand their business in Asia while continuously traveling to their HQ in Philadelphia. And for them, I was primarily working on business development as well as on a little bit on product.
Well, congratulations on getting to this company. So tell us about New Purchase. Why did you start it? How big is the company in terms of numbers of employees that you have now? Give us some of the um, storyline about how you got to where you're at right now.
Sure. Now Purchase started originally in April of 2017. So now it's almost 9 years or a little bit more than 9 years. And the first 3 years of the journey was very different from what the company looks like today. So first 3 years of the company between 2017 and 20, we were a B2B e-commerce marketplace for day-to-day things a factory needs like safety gear, pumps, motors, tools, tackles, electricals. Now, why did I start this and why did I think this would be a great business? Was I would say came from two or three reasons. One, a lot of the innovation which was happening in India was primarily consumer focused. And it felt like the businesses are not getting a part of the digital story which India was playing out. So that was number one. Number two, I am fortunate that I come from a family which has been into manufacturing for over 6 decades. So my grandfather had started a machine shop in 1960. So it's a 66-year-old family business into manufacturing. And speaking to my cousins, my father, my uncle, I realized that day-to-day things at a manufacturing company in terms of procurement is still very broken. And that's when my co-founder Akash, who was my cousin, mentioned that this is a big problem which he also faces. And if we build an e-commerce marketplace for this, it could be super valuable. And that's how we started Now Purchase and why we started Now Purchase. And first 3 years of the company, we were bootstrapped and we tried various models within this space. In the US, there are some successful companies in this space called like Granger, uh, MacMaster, Fastenal, all are US billion-dollar companies. But this model, at least from our perspective, did not scale to the level we thought. And just before COVID, we decided that we would pivot the business. So the business was doing, I would say, okay, not great, not bad, but we were in it to make it a great business. And we decided to pivot the business completely just before COVID. And then September 2020, which is, I would say, Now Purchase 2.0, we completely pivoted the business out of our old business and restarted back from zero. So, it was 3 years, 3.5 years of work, which we sort of had to detach ourselves from and restart the business. We knew that B2B procurement and industrial digitization is still a big story to play out. And rather than focus on every industry, we decided that we'll only focus on one industry and try to do something more unique and phenomenal for them. And that's how we pivoted and started Now Purchase as a focused platform, working with only metal manufacturers in India to help them procure the right raw materials as well as help them optimize production through our software. So, yeah, that's a quick backstory on how this played out.
How difficult was it to pivot? I mean, you've already kind of established yourself in one area, and now you pivot to somewhat of a different area, even though you knew that business from the prior business.
So, I think when till the time you pivot, if you feel that why didn't you do it sooner? But it's so difficult to let go, and you feel like, oh, this is working. You get, while I'm a student of economics, you get into the sunk cost, you know, all the pragmatism that, oh, this is sunk cost, you should not think about it, goes out of the window because you think about the late nights, the blood, the sweat, the tears you've spent building the existing platform. And it is super difficult. I would say a few things helped us. I would say, in a way, while we were almost on the fence pre-COVID, COVID created such an automatic pause across the global scenario that it helped us sort of just take a pause because everything was anyway standstill. And I think that helped us to actually go through with the pivot more clinically and without more remorse or without feeling why should we do it or not.
Did it take a different type of people to help you make this transition? Like, the people you had already surrounded yourself with in the existing business, did all of them stay through the transition, or did you find you needed a different set of skills to make this transition?
Sure. So, one thing I personally believe in is that a lot of the people working at startups don't have specified skills. They have the ability to learn, the ability to hustle, and really wanting to put in their hard work. So when we transitioned, we were around 25 or 30 people back then. And so we decided to ask everyone who wanted to stay and make sure that we give them the tools to stay back and give them whatever it takes to learn. So some folks decided to stay and some transitioned out who were very core to e-commerce operations and not relevant for the new business. So I would say more than two-thirds of them stayed back and a third of them transitioned out.
Wow. Okay. So that was great. So it wasn't total upheaval. From your key leadership, did all of them stay, or was it the same thing? Two-thirds stayed, one-third left.
Actually, from we were a young bootstrap company. We didn't have like a lot of strong leadership back then. A lot of folks were reporting to me, but we did
Yeah.
have a couple of rising stars, I would say, who are doing well. So I would be happy to share that the someone who leads our business operations today actually joined me 8 years back. And he joined me in the older business as a sales guy and grew up the ranks. He's a VP business operations for us today. He himself has a team of over 50 people today, actually. So he stayed with us and has done well for himself. And then a lot of folks who are there. So I would say a good chunk of people still work at Now Purchase who worked with me in the first 3 years. So that's still very heartening.
Did you always want to be an entrepreneur?
So, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was more, I would say, linked to maybe my roots, where I saw my grandfather build something from the scratch. Then my father also set up something with the family business. But I would say within entrepreneurship, I was not sure that I would be getting so deep into building a tech-enabled company and being in the real startup space. I thought I would end up maybe diversifying our family business or trying to grow it. That's what I thought. After maybe a few years of consulting experience or work ex, I might go and try to diversify our family experience. And I think the exposure to technology startups and seeing what's out there in the world changed my uh, plans, because I saw another aspect of entrepreneurship which I had not seen earlier. My earlier view on entrepreneurship was very closely attached to what I saw in my family business, which is another aspect of another way to build the business. But how tech-enabled high growth startups are built was a completely different perspective. And I think that aspect got changed, which did not. So I would say entrepreneurship plan was there, but within entrepreneurship, the plan did change from the family business to setting up a new age high growth company.
How old are you now?
So I'm 34.
34?
Yeah.
And so watching your parents and grandparents be entrepreneurs, how has entrepreneurship changed even in your 14 years working with entrepreneurs?
Sure. So I would say that uh, I would say from the perspective of like the way I have seen certain trends and certain things changing across startups, across family businesses, of friends and other people I'm connected with, both in at least in India and some parts overseas as well. So one is that earlier there was a notion of like trying to do as much as you can do yourself. But now people are realizing the value of delegating, having partners, whether it's in-house, outsourced, or in different forms. And that is one thing which is leading to people being more specialized, and rather than just being always thinking that, okay, I have to do everything myself. So that's, I think, a switch which is happening slowly but surely. That's one thing. The other thing which I would say is that from an Indian perspective, India's macro has really changed, because 14 years back, I tried my hand at a edutech business, and India did not have good data connections or internet connections back then. But today, India has probably one of the best 4G, 5G networks, and one of the lowest costs of data anywhere in the world. So that's again a macro change. Now, that macro change has a big impact on how people work, because if someone would say that people in India would work remotely to me 10 years back and they would just do remote work, that was, I would say, you're crazy. And but now it's so common that people are working in hybrid setups or work from home setups, and it's very much common in India as well. So that's drastically changed. Third is that I would say institutional capital, venture capital, private equity, angel investments was relatively new 14 years back. But now India has a very vibrant startup scene. A lot of VC funds, both Indian funds have come up, as well as all the global funds have an Indian counterpart or Indian entity now as well. So these are a few things that I'm changing. And lastly, but not the least, is India's public markets have also become very much accepting of various kinds of businesses. So it's a very, very active public markets as well, where you see close to, I think, 100 companies list every year now. So.
How has AI changed your business and the business world as a whole? What's your take on AI and where do you see it going?
Sure, sure. So I'll talk about a few aspects. I think personal productivity, business, and then our business itself. How are we using AI at our company? So I think from a personal productivity perspective, of course, we all know it's just next level, but I'll just tell you specific things I do. So for example, I have like Claude Cowork running, and it would pretty much run every morning between 7 and 8. At times I've fixed, and it would sort of look at all my emails and filter out the emails which I should reply, which I shouldn't reply. If I should reply, what should be my draft replies? And so when I open my laptop at usually 8:30 in the morning, I already have a set of replies. I can quickly just nudge through and go ahead. Similarly, various other kinds of automations of any kind of reports I'm getting, which is now being automatically visualized on dashboards. or artifacts, which Claude calls it. These are some simple examples, and then all the MCPs which Claude has, whether it's with our CRM software, whether it's a note taker, whether it's with the Google Calendar. Even when you told me that we need to talk, I just went to my Claude app and wrote to it, book this slot on my calendar, and it auto created a calendar invite on my calendar. I didn't even have to open my calendar to create the invite. So it's all pretty much linked, and these MCPs, I think, are the apps of the App Store. So, like apps were there in the App Store, these MCPs would become like the apps. And eventually, I think people are going to be charged to use these MCPs. Currently, it's all free, but eventually, Anthropics and OpenAIs are going to make money on this as a platform like Apple did with Apple Store. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is within our company, uh, you know, for things like day-to-day graphics, we have made design agents which create social media graphics. We have some AI platform which we use for first round interviews now, which does the first round telephonic and virtual screening so that we don't have to talk to everyone, because we pretty much can't talk to all the people who may be interested to work. Then, for example, within the company itself, we have pretty much made a sort of a shout out that everyone can get access to AI tools. So there's like a simple Google form they fill up and they get access to an AI tool. So everyone in our company sort of encouraged to use a Gemini or an Anthropic or whatever they want, whatever is their stack, to use it actively. And lastly, from our company's perspective, is we are working on a software called Metal Cloud, which we recently launched, which leverages the cameras at the factory and gives you AI level analytics. So all the CCTV cameras are now AI enabled, which can tell you what's happening on the factory floor. Is your factory operations working as per your expectation or not? And that's something super exciting. And in general, I think AI is, like a business partner. You have someone to talk to, get advice as well based on facts and figures. So it's a game changer in all aspects, and it's here to stay for a while.
Do you think it's going to be a job creator or a job eliminator?
Sure, sure. So I find it very difficult to believe that over time it will be a job creator at a stretch of time. Maybe at immediately it is, but a stretch of time. And again, I would say the answer would depend on the countries and the economies you're looking at. So let's talk about India, for example. India has a huge call center BPO market, who are acting as call centers for a lot of US brands. Now, a lot of these call centers will have massive headcount reduction because AI is going to do a lot of those calls now. Already we are seeing a lot of the chat support agents now converted to AI chatbots. So I definitely see that over time, there would be some form of a reduction, but also what is going to happen is AI is going to lead to the ability for everyone to start a business, irrespective of what they have. Like with a $20 subscription and maybe another $20 for another couple of tools, with a $50 a month subscription, you can be up and running with the business. So I think business creation would get more prevalent, and especially a lot of the content businesses are getting really great traction these days with people creating reels and other kinds of content. So I would say that some job seekers would become freelancers and solo entrepreneurs. And that's how I would see the change happening, to be able to support themselves and the economy.
What's the most challenging part of being an entrepreneur for you?
So I think in general, if I look at it very specifically, it's about prioritization, because there's just always so many things you can do. And how do you prioritize? Because there's only so much you can do, and make sure that whatever you do gets to a result of some value creation is sometimes one of the biggest challenges. And that's because, you know, there is finance, there is business development, there's strategy, then there's team. And I think a lot of times, there's so many balls to juggle that it's always, catch 22. So I would say prioritization is the key thing for me, and the key challenge I try to solve regularly.
Um, what kind of people do you look to hire? Uh, and what's your criteria for hiring people? And what have you learned about hiring uh, over time?
So yeah, I asked this question about how many people we are. So we are over 120 people in the company. So I have done a fair bit of hiring over these years, uh, and a lot of folks have been interviewed. So I would say a few things on the hiring front. So with respect to the hiring front, I would say there are a few things. One is that I strongly look at people who do not have a bias for where they're coming from and are ready to sort of unlearn and learn. And that means that many times we don't have a lot of people who come with tens of years of experience because it's more difficult for them to unlearn and learn. I would say the average age in our company would be, say, 28 or 27. That would be the average age in the company. Uh, in terms of other things that we look for while we're doing is, in general, like, what is your ability to think in terms of ownership end to end rather than think in silos? We end up doing a lot of hiring from universities across India, both undergrad and master students. We end up hiring, I would say, 8 to 10 fresh graduates every year. And over time, some of them become mid to senior level leaders in the company as well. So that's been our go-to game in terms of hiring.
Um, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made, and what did you learn from it?
So, so I would say that, a few things here. So I would say that a couple of things. One is that when we were pivoting and, I was not thinking long term enough and just, I would say, locked into the existing business, and I could have pivoted the business maybe 18 months earlier. So not pivoting early enough and not looking at things with first principles probably delayed the pivot by 1.5 years, I would say. That's a mistake, definitely, which has happened. The other thing is that a lot of times you think that you're not ready for certain things. So let's say fundraise. So when we raised our first round of money, I thought we're not ready to raise yet, and I was like wanting to defer. But my co-founder and cousin Akash pushed me, saying that you guys are ready, let's raise, and we were actually able to raise. So I think sometimes um, you sort of undermine the value of where you are. Like, you look at yourself and say that, oh, this could, you're not there yet, but you're actually there. And so I think sometimes that's a mistake as well.
You raised outside capital. Was it venture capital or angel?
So no, we have had angels in the early rounds, but we have raised 3 rounds of venture capital now. We have 3 different VC funds on our cap table.
And so, what's that like raising money? What should an entrepreneur know? What that path is like and journey like to raise capital from both angels and VCs?
Sure. So firstly, why do you want to raise capital should be the question every entrepreneur must answer. Not because everyone is raising capital, you should raise capital. Because by the nature of business, certain businesses need capital to create a valuable outcome. Certain businesses can create a great outcome with limited capital, which might be just bootstrap or angel. So it depends on why you're doing this and what kind of business you are in. And not just what kind of business you're in, what kind of business owner you want to be. Sometimes, because once you are raising money from external capital, you are a business owner, but you're also accountable to them. It's their money. You're a custodian of their money, so you are accountable to them. And if you are someone who does not want to, currently uh, create this accountability for yourself, then it's best to not raise capital from external folks. And especially just as a process, obviously, any kind of VC raise does take between 3 and 6 months, given there is so many different aspects to it, right from the initial pitching to uh, internal diligence to eventually term sheets and due diligence and so on. So it's a process. At least in India, it does take at least 6 months. Maybe in certain countries it's lesser, some more, but in India the average would be, say, 6 months from time to raise. to the closure. And that's what's been my experience. We are very fortunate. We have great funds as our partners, and they are folks who has helped us building this company till now.
But what should an entrepreneur expect when the VC signs on and becomes their partner? And how do you work with a VC to make sure it's a harmonious partnership?
I think as entrepreneurs, you need to look beyond the money, not just look at the money that you're getting, not just chase the highest valuation. We have left rounds with a higher valuation because we felt another fund would be more suitable to us, or we would get along better with them. So don't chase the highest valuation, chase the right people, right partner at a fund, because eventually these valuations won't matter. If the company does well, it does well. If the company does not do well, it does not do well. So these valuations at that point of time seems like a big thing. It's almost like I always say to some people, it's like your high school marks. At the time you passed out of high school, it felt like this is life and death, or this is like your SAT scores, whatever it is. But after you entered college, no one would care about these SAT scores or your high school scores. Almost like that, right? So at that moment, these valuations feel like this is your report card. So this is, what you're going to be known for. But 3 months later, 6 months later, no one cares. Uh, so I think that's how I would say to think about it, given you said a lot of people, your listeners are high school students. So I would say think about it like that.
How often do you communicate with your investors and how do you work with them so they trust you and continue to support you?
So I think, been around, I would say 4.5 years since we raised our first round of venture capital. And so that's what, like 54 months. I would say out of the 54 months, I would say probably 50 months at least, we have sent the monthly MIS on time with all the details, the P&L, and so on. So that's one way to communicate and create trust because they know that you are gonna be proactively sending them updates. Second is we typically end up speaking every 1 or 2 months to them over a call, and maybe every 6 months in a face-to-face setup as well to get the thoughts. So that's how we communicate to them and keep a very open line of conversation and keep sharing our challenges and we get feedback from them.
Did you have mentors that helped you become the entrepreneur that you are? And if you did have mentors, what was the value?
Sure. So, there have been different people who have helped me, guided me at different aspects of entrepreneurship. So I would say when I started off, my grandfather was my mentor. He passed away around 2.5 years back, and he had a way of building a business which was very people centric. Look at do the right thing, irrespective. And I think that was something I sort of imbibed from him, as well as just perseverance, because you know just keep going, keep going, keep going. It'll happen. I think that's sort of picked up a lot from learning from him. And he was someone who encouraged me a lot to start as well when I was thinking of starting up. So that's one. Then my time with Mike, because Mike is the founder of Biz Equity, where it's a company which I worked for 3 years. Uh, I saw him build companies where he was extremely, I would say, always on a sales and BD role, in the sense, irrespective of him designation being the founder and CEO, but he was always selling. So I think as a founder, I'm also now always selling. So that's sort of something I would say come from seeing that work out, because you are always selling, whether it's to new hires, to investors, to customers. And so that's that. And then Mr. Sanjeev, he's the one of the India's first internet billionaires. He is one. He's actually uh, uh, the owner of the one of the VC funds which has invested in us. And I've been fortunate to meet him a few times, and I think get focus on the cash flow, focus on P&L. While those are not something new, but sometimes you get lost in certain things. So yeah, these three people have helped me, I would say, a fair bit in my journey to get to where I am.
How do you manage work-life balance? I mean, now you're married, you have a son, congratulations, six
Thank
months
you so
old,
much.
I think you mentioned to me. Uh, so I found, because I've done 30 startups, that it's really, really hard to have work-life balance. How do you manage that?
Sure. So I think, it's very difficult to sort of think of life as work-life balance because your startup, your life, everything is sort of intertwined because it's not like you can't compartmentalize it as an entrepreneur. So from my perspective, I typically try to start my day early, which gives me some head start. Even if I have to spend time with family or I have to spend time at work, I usually am up by 5:30 most days, if not all. So I get some time in the morning to spend time. That's one. The other is, you know, usually earlier even Sundays ended up becoming having some work usually, but now for a while I don't work on Sundays at least. Saturdays I'm still working most of Saturdays, so but Sundays I'm still not working, which is a big relief now. Apart from that, I think also while you're still working, but I end up working maybe remote once or twice a week, and that's while you're still working, but it still feels that you're more sort of there and easy to spend time because you're not spending time on commute and things like that. But in general, I think as an entrepreneur, I even travel 8, 10 days a month. So it's never that you can say that, oh, you have uh, full work-life balance. You always want to spend more time at family and you want to spend more time at work. It's a funny thing because you want to spend more time at both places. So you're like, oh, if I could have spent 2 more hours at my startup, I could have done this. If I could have spent 2 more hours with my wife or kid or my parents, I could have done this. So it's always like you want to be there at both places. So I think, yeah, that's a part of the prioritization, which also keeps happening in this aspect.
How do you manage to keep growing professionally? Because a lot of entrepreneurs ended up being ousted from their own companies because they hit their own ceiling. How do you make sure that you don't hit the ceiling?
Sure. So one of the things, I've been lucky and now pretty much been in that mindset is, so I'll just give you a few examples. So around 3 years back, 4 years back, I would say, I first time asked another external person to take feedback from my reportees on how I am as a manager, anonymous. So that's the first time I did that 4 years back. That's one example because you get some inputs which you wouldn't get and you sort of learn. Second is I have done a few external courses and interventions. So there's been certain workshops I've done around how to set up systems and processes in the company, which is something I felt was lacking in my DNA on how to scale an organization. And this was like a very extensive program where I spent like, 1 day a week for like 6 months. And it was primarily to build better systems and scale in organizations. Um, Recently, I did a program around growth marketing. So one thing I keep doing is I end up doing some programs, online learnings, physical learnings as well. That's one aspect of how I try to keep growing. The other is a lot of exploratory meetings. So just giving an example, like I was telling you, I was in the US. Out of the 2 weeks I was in the US, 6 to 8 days, I would say more direct work. The rest 5 days, I was just in the valley meeting people. And I did not have a very direct agenda, but I ended up meeting like 15 people over 5 days in between San Fran and Palo Alto. Now, a lot of them were entrepreneurs, some were investors, some were employees at startup. Like one of my batchmates is currently working at OpenAI. So these were just exploratory meetings, and these meetings give you a lot of takeaways and learnings. So these are the two buckets. Like one is more structured, one is more exploratory, which I keep doing. And now I think I've become in a habit of sort of like just keep doing it all the time. So it does not feel like to me that, okay, I'm doing something weird or something which is not common. But for me, it's like part of my routine now to continuously upskill myself and meet people who can give me some other learnings.
So As we wrap up, what's the one or two, three pieces of advice you would give an aspiring entrepreneur based on what you've learned over the years now?
Sure, sure. So I think one of the things is that it's very underrated, but just the amount of time you give to something, it is a lot of times directly proportional to success. And uh, you might get some signals that it's not working. If it's something fundamentally flawed, it's a different story. But otherwise, if you can persevere and be at it for a decent amount of time, you will hit that inflection point. Because a lot of people are gonna be, accepting defeat and moving out of the race. And it's like the last man standing almost, right? So in some form, that is an underrated virtue, and people don't talk about it much, but I think that's very valuable. The other is trust your team. Don't try to think that you know everything. Trust your people, learn, trust your team. That is, I would say, the second bucket as an entrepreneur. Third is, I would say, very difficult to do this in the early days, but I feel like in the early days, I was so much involved with the micro aspects of the business, the operations of the business, that I did not look at it from a positioning perspective, from what would be the big picture. So I think even while you're running day to night, make sure you take out some time to look at the big picture. If you don't look at the big picture, you might lose track of where you should be heading.
Naman, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to speak with me today. I'm so proud of you and what you've accomplished. It's amazing. So again, I hope that this continues. I wouldn't be surprised if you start a few more companies over the next 20, 30 years. I see you as a serial entrepreneur. I'm sure you'll have a successful exit from this. And again, congratulations on being a dad. That's probably the best thing.
Absolutely. Nothing beats that for sure. Thank you so much, Mark. It's such a pleasure to talk after, like I said, decade. And I was remembering all the, learnings we had when we were a student at UPenn from NUS, and we got a chance to spend with you. First time talk about angel investments, be part of your angel venture fair back in the day. So it's just great to sort of, it's like a full circle, I would say.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you.